We shall see. Right.
Okay, it's on. Okay, awesome. Woo. All right, you guys. Sorry for our little delay here. I think we're all experiencing this lately. This Mercury retrograde, technology doesn't want to work. So thank you for bearing with us. They're all hanging out in the Rising She tribe right now. We have Emily here, and you're retrograde. Technology doesn't want to work. So thank you for bearing with us. We're all hanging out in the Rising She tribe right now.
Emily, play Facebook.
There you go.
Oh my goodness.
The fun continues. I'm telling you, you guys, we don't know what's going to happen. There might be like a unicorn that jumps out in the middle of this podcast, but just be open for anything, right?
Yeah.
All right, you guys. So let's get settled in for a second and come together, because as you guys know in the community, this is our weekly podcast where we have a lovely woman that comes in, shares her woo-woo wisdom. And like I mentioned in the beginning of this live cast, we have Emily here today. And Emily, I'm going to give just a little brief bio on you, but after, please like divulge into anything that you want to as well. So Emily started her business 2 years ago as a social media manager. So cool. And marketing consultant. She realized there was more magic and what she wanted to do, which is why she started to open up her psychic gifts. Now, personally, I've seen you live many times on social media, and if you guys aren't already following Emily, please do so after this, because your lives give so much value on how to open up your psychic abilities. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and let's get all like acquainted with you and what's up in your world.
No, thank you so much. That makes me happy that you said that, because that's one of the things that I'm super, super passionate about, is helping other people. Like, I had a little bit of several traumatic events in my life that led me to open up my psychic gifts. So it's something I'm very passionate about, is to help other people open them up in a way that isn't traumatic and that is really loving and supported, you know, and fun too, because at the end of the day, it's a superpower, and we're meant to, you know, leverage it to create really like the lives and businesses that we love. And yeah.
That's so beautiful.
I love that. That is so beautiful. I think that, yeah, I think some people feel like you have to go through like this turmoil. You have to go through like this treacherous journey so that you can experience enlightenment, you know, on the other side. But I mean, it doesn't have to be that way. I think that's just what tends to come up for a lot of people. So I love that you're kind of making this a nice, easy, smooth transition. I think that's so beautiful. Very cool. Yeah, definitely. And I think part of a spiritual awakening, there is trauma that does come up because it's a healing process. It's a journey of self-discovery. But like you said, it doesn't have to be so traumatic or so so painful. Like, it can be a lot easier and more fun and loving if you choose for it to be that way. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Well, so Emily, there's something that we love to ask when we have our women come on here, and it's always a different answer, and it's always just a really, you know, great way to start this out. So if you could tell everybody, what do you love about being a woman? Ooh, I think the first thing is feminine power, and it's creator energy. And for me, it's been a journey to really accept that and also embrace it, because I grew up with like a military dad. And so like I used to be very masculine just in the way that I did things. I was very action oriented, and that's really how I grew my business. But this year, as I've grown my spiritual gifts and really expanded them and leveraged them, I've realized that the holding space and the creator energy, that feminine energy, is just as powerful and just as necessary as that masculine take charge, take action kind of energy.
Yeah, I love that. I love that a lot, because that's my favorite thing too. The feminine power, the creativity, for sure. So when did you first kind of realize your own psychic gifts, and did you have any resistance in the beginning of your journey?
Oh, absolutely. I always knew I was different. Like, I always knew growing up that I was different, but I kind of just thought like I was weird, or I just didn't fit in, or something like that. Growing up, I was kind of always told that I was like too sensitive. And what was interesting is that
I was having all these experiences that I didn't know they were psychic experiences or like mediumship experiences. But my friends would say things like, you know, you're kind of psychic, or like, you know, like nobody else experiences these kind of things. So of course, when they would say things like that, it like weirded me out, because I was taught from an early age with my parents and my family that it was weird to talk about things like that, or it wasn't allowed, et cetera, et cetera. But really, like, I would say probably in college was when I started to become aware that I was an empath and that I had something different with me. But it was kind of a long journey to really getting to a place where I could really use it. And because I did have some traumatic events in college, but I would say probably about a year and a half ago, which was when I was in my business, I started realizing that there was just more going on than just what I was doing, and that when I followed the marketing strategy, it didn't really work. But then when I just did what I felt like doing, or what it was downloads. I was getting downloads, but I didn't realize it at the time. But when I just followed the intuition, that's what really worked. So that was really when I started developing the psychic gifts.
Oh, so good. I think a lot of times we do what we think we should do versus what our heart is telling us to do, because we tie so much to it with like money and like our place in the world and things like that. So I love that.
Mm-hmm.
This is so cool. Okay, I just love picking your brain. Okay, so one of the questions that we have is, I'm just like a loose cannon today, if you haven't noticed. As you've gone deeper into your spiritual journey, what have been some hurdles for you? So one of the things that we love connecting with psychics, and I think it's something that the three of us together, that we strive to get to that point. And I think we've been kind of cracking open some doors and being able to open our certain clairs. But have you ever hit a roadblock where you're like, yesterday I had it, today I don't? Or, you know, what does that look like?
So I would say probably the most challenging thing for me, not as much now because I'm used to it, but in the beginning and as I was really developing my gifts, was trusting myself. Mm-hmm. So trusting what I felt, trusting what came through, also deciphering between the ego mind and the ego and the actual like loving universal guidance, because I would be tuning into other people's energy, but it would be wrapped up in my own ego or in their ego, and I wouldn't get clear guidance, and then I would question it and doubt it, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, it was really just like trusting it. And I think that's really everybody's issue, because a lot of times when you start, you're like, is this me? Is this just voices in my head? Is this the universe? Like, are these angels? Like, I don't know, because it all sounds like my voice. But the thing is as you go deeper and you allow yourself to trust it, and you allow yourself to receive that information, it becomes stronger, and like the voices turn into other voices that aren't your voices, or like your visions become where they like knock you on the head. For me now, if I don't follow my intuitive nudges, I get like knocked on the head to do it, and they keep coming back and back and back. So that's what happens, is as you keep listening to it and trusting it, it becomes stronger and stronger and stronger.
Let's pause there for a second, because I have a feeling that there's people in the group that probably have questions for you too. Mm-hmm. So let's just throw it out there. We can continue asking questions too. But if you guys are tuning in right now and you have a question for Emily, whether it's like opening up or hitting your own hurdle, or like we've been talking about masculine, feminine, feel free to ask below, and then we'll just come back to you guys and filter them off to Emily. Okay? Sorry. Interjection.
And I was just wondering too, like, so as far as like trusting the process, what was like the biggest thing that you did to allow yourself to trust? Like, what was the kind of the framework that you put behind like your everyday practice to really dive into what, you know, what your abilities are? But also, I would love to know, what are your abilities? I mean, what are the really big opening up, and what does that look like for you when you're working with your clients and whatnot?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I did, one was working with a coach, a spiritual life coach. She technically was like a psychic business coach, but we just worked on like psychic lifestyle stuff. And she really helped me because she gave me a framework for what I was already experiencing. Because in my mind was the way that everybody else's mind was working. So the way that I processed things, I thought everybody else was just like that. So I didn't realize that like experiences that I had been having were psychic experiences. So that really helped me. The other big piece is inner work. I do a ton of inner work, journaling, tapping, ton of mindset work. I do meditate. I'm not the best meditator, and I feel like everybody, whenever people ask me this question, like they expect me to say meditation. But honestly, meditation used to be a struggle for me and still is to a degree. But it is something that I try to make time for every single day because I'm just more centered and happier and clearer when I do it. As far as my gifts, so I have a lot of different, kind of like a range. So my biggest thing is clairvoyance. So clear seeing, visions, vivid dreams, just pictures. My other thing, I'm very clairaudient, so I hear a lot of things. Sometimes I hear whispers or voices, or sometimes it comes to me through like songs. I'll hear stuff like that. Claircognizance is a big one also, so clear knowing. That one took me a little bit more time to develop because, like I said, it took me time to trust myself and trusting. So the other piece too is that I'm just really good at reading people, and it's from what people say to what people body language and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's kind of like the whole package of being a psychic. I don't know, but for me, like, I've always been somebody that if you walk into the room, like I already know what you're feeling or what's going on. And because I'm so into mindset work, I can also see like past stories for you or blocks or things like that. So if you ask me a question about, say, your income or something like that, I can tell like what your limiting beliefs are. And I can also usually see like, okay, what was the dynamic with your mom and your dad with money and things like that. So it's basically just like, the best way I feel like I can describe it is it's like tapping into a wide variety of information, and then it's just about me kind of deciphering it, and as you go along and as you practice it, you get better and better at deciphering the information. Like you start to understand what certain things mean, and it makes more sense and it becomes more automatic.
So cool. Okay, so who like would you say is like the general person that comes to you? Is it an entrepreneur? Is it like what does that look like for you normally when you're coaching?
So it's actually two different people. One, it's usually a spiritual entrepreneur who they've tried everything else in their business, like all the strategies, and it's just not working for them. They're kind of like at the end of like giving up or going for it. So those are the people that I really help business-wise. Lifestyle-wise are people who are trying to open up their gifts and they just don't understand, or maybe they're blocking themselves, or they have a lot of people around them who tell them that they can't do it, or they're so stuck in anxiety and fear and overwhelm. I can help those people open up their gifts. But usually it's always a spiritual person or somebody who has that spiritual calling, because I'm so spiritual that, I mean, I can work with people who aren't spiritual and I have clients who aren't spiritual, but it tends to be somebody who's spiritual.
So do you feel like that's like a really just, is that something that you offer? Okay, so rewind. Is everything that you offer strictly like one-on-one coaching, or do you do like coursework, or what do you do?
Yeah, so I have several different layers and levels in my business. And I did this because I realized that like I want to be able to help people at any level. I hate it when people, and I hate it even in myself when I've wanted to do something and I didn't have the money for it. I don't think that should be a roadblock for somebody being able to do what they want to do, right? So I have everything from one-on-one coaching. I have a high-level mastermind with my bestie, Deb Farina. I do run group programs, and this past year I did a lot of group programs, and I'm not going to be doing as many next year. I'm going to be doing only just a couple. And those are marketing, business, but then also spiritual related and like spiritual lifestyle related. And then I also have lower like memberships, like monthly memberships for people. So like I have a journaling membership, and I have like a money affirmation membership and things like that. So pretty much like there's a way to work with me at any level, regardless of what you're trying to do, and also your budget as well.
I love that.
I can like picture everyone like woo woo woo, like putting their hands up, like yay. That's so cool. What's been like from like your client's perspective, what's been like the biggest aha that you've been able to serve someone that really sticks out to you?
Probably, okay, so as a psychic, like I've given tons of psychic readings, and I actually didn't even start giving readings until recently. I used to just do consulting, which was pretty much like readings, but I was just not comfortable in calling it that. So probably the biggest confirmation of my psychic gifts, one of the like best ones that stands out in my memory was, I remember I gave this girl, like, it was like a big vision. So I gave her this big vision reading, and I told her something like, like, go broad in your business. You can serve a lot of different people, even like a sports company, like a baseball team or ball. Like, I was just kind of throwing out stuff, which is how any psychic reading works. If you've ever worked with a psychic, we just blurt things out. And so she came back to me several months later, and she said, oh my God, I'm in talks with the baseball team to like do gifts for them or something like that. And it was just awesome, because sometimes, like, and this is totally normal, like in the beginning when you're practicing your gifts, sometimes you feel crazy for some of the things that you say. And then you're like, why am I talking about a horse right now? Or why am I talking about this right now? And it's a nice thing to have people come back to you, or to have people be like, yes, that resonates so much, or yes, I feel that. Like, and yeah, so that's probably one of my most favorite memories of like of a confirmation that I got.
Oh, that is so cool.
I'm gonna open up our chat really quick here, and our live cast. I'll let you go, Rosemary, too, or either one, whoever's next, and I can just pull a question here from the group.
Sure. So, okay, as far as like, so we talked about your gifts. What do you think, like, I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase it, but how do you, is there like a certain like protocol, so to speak, that you work with when you're working with a client that wants to open up their gifts? Like, what is the first step that you have them do? Like, is there like I mean, I know like some have like kind of a framework of how they work with people, but it's just how you read them, what comes up in the session, or is there like specific exercises that you have them do?
So it really depends on the person. Probably the first two things that I do is like kind of dig into their mindset around their gifts, because a lot of times the thing that blocks people from opening up their gifts are fears, trauma, or just like not believing in it, right? Like questioning it. So it's kind of digging into the mindset, but then also getting them to become aware of what they're already experiencing. And have them start to notice, like, oh my gosh, I just had a vision and that came true, or I knew this about this person and that came true. Like, getting them to notice that they're already experiencing these things. They didn't have the awareness, or they didn't have the words for it, or that sort of thing. And that was one of the biggest things for me when I started really opening up and recognizing my gifts. Is like, I'm a huge journal. I always have a journal. And I have one journal that just has experience after experience, and I just would write it down. And I got to the point where I stopped writing it down, because now I know when I'm having an experience or when I've had an experience. But it was just good for me to start to realize, okay, I just had a vision and then it just came true an hour later, or I just thought about wanting a blender and then I manifested one later today. And that's the beautiful thing about having psychic gifts and really strengthening them, is it powers your manifesting like you want to believe.
This might be a weird question, but it's like, it kind of just makes me like really go down like the rabbit hole of thinking about manifesting versus psychic ability. So when, like you said with the blender, this could be anything. When you are thinking of this blender, are you manifesting the blender, or are you just having this, precognition that the blender is about to come into your experience? Or is there ever really a way of knowing? Because it could be, it's like the chicken before the egg, I guess. But I always thought that was interesting.
That's an interesting thought. So in my mind, what I believe is that I was manifesting the blender, and I've done this before with, like, I did it with my printer and random things like that. And the reason I believe that is because around that time, and still this time too, I was working with these affirmations, like, I manifest amazing things into my life just by thinking of them. I manifest amazing specific things into my life just by thinking of them. Because honestly, I was tired of the like, oh, I have to write things down a million times to manifest it. Like, you can manifest things any way that you want to manifest. We already manifest things all the time. It's just about getting specific and intentional with it. And so I was playing with that. And then it was like the universe's way of confirming, yes, you can do it this way. Yes, you can do it this way. So I don't know if that answers your question, but just in my mind, it was I was manifesting it first.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. And I mean, it just comes down to how strong your belief is of how quickly you can manifest things. I always take it back to Abraham Hicks, and she's like, you can manifest a button, you can manifest a castle. It's the same thing. It's just on your belief system and your limiting beliefs and where it's at as to what you can bring into your path. So yeah, it's very cool. I love that. I love just the idea that you can help people tap into what's happening to them on a daily basis, because I feel like that's been a big part of my journey over the last year, is just knowing things before they're going to happen, seeing things, but not trusting it. And then when I see it later, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I knew that. But it's like trusting it in the moment and not second guessing it. But that's like the biggest struggle that I've experienced. So, yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, it just takes becoming more aware of the experiences. Like for me, I used to, so I get messages through everything, like from my crystal sitting here to like my coffee mug to anything that pulls my attention, I see as a message. But I didn't used to understand exactly what the message was automatically. It used to be that I would get pulled to something and then something would happen later that day with that object. Like for instance, I was pulled to like the fence outside my window, and then later that day our dogs got out, you know. So, or like one day I was stopped in my tracks and looking at my car, and then later I realized I left my jean jacket in my car. And I like, as a psychic, I never lose anything, so if I lose something, like that's like weird, you know. So but yeah, I didn't know why I was being pulled to those objects until it happened. But then just me recognizing that that was the universe or spirit or whatever you want to call it, doesn't care what you call it, like calling me to that for that reason, that was that. And that's the thing too, is with psychic experiences and spiritual experience, anything like that, at first, like the universe is going to do things that you don't really care about or that you aren't attached to. So like I'm not attached to my jean jacket or to the fence or things like that, right? The universe, and sometimes the universe will do it with bad things. Like I was talking to a girl today, and she was saying that she had a vision that she was going to get in a car wreck, and then she did. And the universe will do it that way because sometimes you put so much pressure on knowing it that you block it. So the universe is going to do it in a way that you're going to notice. So like for me, it was with things that didn't matter. For that girl, it was with bad things because she wasn't noticing the good things that she was already seeing ahead of time.
Mm. Yeah.
What if you like, okay, so this is an interesting thing. What if you worry about someone else for no reason? You know, where it's like you, like for me, I worry about my spouse. Like when he leaves in the morning, I'm always like, is he going to make it to work on time? Like, is he going to be okay? Is the traffic? And I hate that I do it because this whole manifesting, I'm like, shut it down, suck it back. Like, I don't want that to carry with him. And so then I picture him being in this loving light and on his way to work. But how do you, like, what's your thought with that? If you're worried about something, like, I know, Sarah, you mentioned one time being worried about your kids, like when you go up and shower and they'd be downstairs and playing. How does a person deal with that?
Yeah. So something that I heard about, so if you're worried about something, you have an attachment to, an emotional attachment. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is if that worry is like heavy and bothering you, right? And honestly, worry is a pretty like lower vibe energy. So most of the time it's not comfortable to worry. So something that I heard recently that like really resonated with me was that if you have an attachment or to something, then you're actually subconsciously you're more attached to not having it. So it's like, obviously you love your husband, you don't want anything to happen to your husband or Sarah with your kids, but then it's like subconsciously you almost don't even want it them, and that's why you're worrying about it, right? And it's kind of a weird thing to wrap your head around. Well, what I see that is if you're worried about somebody else and if you're thinking about somebody else a lot of that is just like the energy between you is really connected, right? So it makes sense that it's your family and your spouse, right? And with that, what I'd recommend is like doing energetic boundary work. So like you said, the loving light, the loving bubble, or putting up a fence or something like that. And just allowing them to be and allowing yourself to be too. Because at the end of the day, you don't have any control over them or what's going to happen to them, right? But also worrying is not really going to do you any good because it's just going to like heavy for you.
Right.
Yeah, I think catching it sooner. I used to be like the biggest worrier. That was just like my thing, my whole life labeled a worrier and just emotional and all of that. fun stuff. And so just catching it quickly, like, noticing the bad thought that you don't want to have about your children or your spouse or your friend, and you're worried and you're like, no, just stop, and then just distract and kind of move on to something else and just let it be. But yeah, that's something I've had to like just be very mindful of, because otherwise it just like keeps coming up and comes up and comes up. So
yeah, because you like intercept the thought and then you ground yourself and you're like, okay, I don't really actually want to be worrying about this, and then it's a good way to kind of bring yourself back down and to focus on what you want and what you want to think.
Yeah.
So a question from our group. When this happened I think it was last week or the week before, we've always talked about this positive side of energy, right? And I think something switched where retrograde started happening. People were feeling kind of sluggish and maybe paying a little bit too much attention to like, oh, what if there is this dark side of all of it? What's your take on that? Like, have you had any weird funky monkey things happen to you, or do you do the bubble where you're protected, or how do you protect? Maybe just riff a little bit.
Yeah, I totally do protect my energy. But here's the thing about the funky stuff and funky energy is that it's not necessarily bad. But the reason that we think it's bad is because it's outside of what we want to feel. But to be honest, everything really is arbitrary. Like everything is meaningless, and it's only good or bad if we assign that to it. But this really goes into like, it's interesting because it's kind of like a mindset thing where it's like, okay, we see the good as like the taking action, and it's really that masculine energy, and it's partly goes back to society and patriarchy, right? And then it's like the resting and needing to slow down is like bad. We feel shame for it, et cetera, et cetera. And that's like that feminine energy, right? But the thing about the retrograde periods is that, yes, it's things that it messes up our computers and technology and all that stuff, but it's a really good thing because what it does is it forces you to step back and look at the big picture of everything and look at like, okay, is this what I want? Is this what I not want? And it forces you into that feminine energy, that creator energy. And I used to resist it because I was so masculine in the way that I took action and built my business and in the way that I used to run my business. But now I allow myself to be, which is an affirmation that I work with every single day. And I allow myself to be, if that means taking a nap in the middle of the day or taking my puppy to the park or anything like that, I allow myself to be. And I know that like I can put my business down and then come back to it and it's going to be totally fine. And if it's not going to be fine, it's not going to be a big deal. I can figure it out, right? But yeah, so it's like, I think personally with the retrograde periods and really anything with like the planets, astrology, how they move in and out of houses, it's really just about respecting that ebb and flow and respecting your ebb and flow, because we are very connected to the planets and to the moon and all that stuff. But the issues that happen and like getting sick, and I'm just getting over a cold because I wasn't respecting that feminine energy in the beginning of retrograde. But the issues that happen, like getting frustrated, getting sick, et cetera, those are signs that you aren't allowing yourself to be and aren't allowing yourself to really respect that ebb and flow.
That was my hallelujah moment. I mean, I've been on and off sick this whole time, and it's for sure too much masculine energy. I mean, these two ladies can attest, being business partners. They're like, you gotta slow down, girl.
I like had this vision, Shauna, of you just like, you were like a train, like a full force train, like nothing's gonna stop you, and you're like, let's go. And I was just like, we gotta just slow down. But yeah, like it's
I guess I've been having a lot of, just a lot of things come back up that weren't addressed or solved in previous times for this retrograde for me. But that has been a way for me to really dive into the feminine, more like creative, emotional, openness, side of myself. But yeah, I've noticed just like tired though, as well, and just needing more sleep. And if I don't get enough sleep, like I'm just knocked out, like I'm just exhausted, and I'm normally not like that. But so yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting time, and I think I've looked at it differently this time, more so than any other, and really understanding that the things that are coming back up are because I need to find a solution, like in a creative one, if that makes sense, like really tap into that creative feminine side and and be that nurturing, you know, like mother that, you know, I think people around me need. So if that makes sense. But yeah, so okay, so we have one more question, and this is a cool one. And so it's, what's your next right move for you?
Okay, so several things. One, I've gotten the intuitive download for like the last 2 months that I'm creating like a lifestyle brand, because I'm so passionate about so many different things, and I have my hands in so many different things. So that's really exciting. The other piece too is that like mediumship stuff. So like I've always felt spirits around me. I've had like deceased loved ones around me and stuff, but it's gotten more and more stronger, and it's not something that I'm comfortable yet like doing readings for. I've done like a couple, but I don't know, it's something that I'm pulled to, and I don't know where it's gonna go. I trust. Sometimes I don't always see like the end thing of things, but I just know that if I have that nudge and I have that push to go in that direction, then that's something worth exploring. So
So cool. Well, I know these ladies are going to want to get in touch with you. So where can they find you on Facebook? If you got a website, let us know where we can go hunt you down and watch more live videos.
Yeah. So I have a Facebook group called the Intuitive Marketing and Mindset Magician. Of course, my Facebook page, which is Emily Cisewski, which my name is really hard to say and spell, but you'll see it on the video or the podcast. And then my website is www.emilycisewskiaswell.com.
Cool. Well, you'll provide the links for us, and we'll definitely post it for you ladies.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just thank you so much for being here. I'll let you cap it off, Sara.
So, I mean, I'm probably going to be reaching out to you personally, just because I feel like everything that you've talked about with your journey, I'm just like, yes, yep. Just like what's been going on for however long, and just feeling like I'm being talked to by the universe constantly, messages constantly through numbers and through just like, anyway, I'm not gonna go off on it. So I'm so grateful that we were able to have you in here, and you brought so much insight to the women in this group. And there's a lot of women in here that are really tapping into their intuitive abilities, really tapping into their psychic abilities, really opening up these gifts right now in a big way. And so having somebody like you that they can kind of like lean on and reach out to is going to be just super, super valuable. So thank you again for joining us, and everybody be sure to tune in every Wednesday night, evening night, for your weekly woo-woo wisdom, and we will see you next Wednesday with another guest.
Thank you guys.
Bye. See you, family.